Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out of your busy lives to share in this important discussion tonight for our high school students and families as to how families and students can prepare for college when high school is closed. My name is Nicole Willier-Fenton. I work in our Continuing and Distance Education Department here at the University of Vermont. So thankful that you're able to be with us. So I'm going to do a quick review of our agenda. I'll introduce our panelists who are joining us from various parts of Vermont and also beyond Vermont as well. Bruce is joining us from Holderness. And so I also just wanted to explain that we'll talk about all the different grades tonight. That was a question that already came up in the chat box, so thank you for asking that. We will go over information for as early as freshmen in high school all the way up to our seniors and what they can be doing to best prepare for the transition into college as well. We also have some interesting opportunities that our panelists have put together to seek opportunity in this hardship and this difficult time. What are things that high school students can be doing to take advantage of some of the time that they have and some of the downtime that they have due to the schools being closed? And our one of our directors of admissions at University of Vermont, Sally Hobart, is joining us as well. So we're going to hear from the other perspective, also learning how are things reflected when applying to the University of Vermont and colleges in terms of some of the advice that our counselors are giving. And we have a lot of resources for parents and students tonight. Somebody did already ask in the chat box. Thank you for asking. This is recorded. We will share this information out afterwards, and we will make sure to share all of the resources that our panelists have put together because there are many for our parents and students. So as I mentioned, my name is Nicole, and we have the wonderful opportunity to hear from Patti Tomashot tonight. Patti is a school counselor director at Stowe High School. Good evening, Patti. We also have Bruce Barton with us. As I mentioned, Bruce is joining us from Holderness School. He is the Director of College Counseling at Holderness. Bruce, it's so great to have you with us as well. And we have Sally Hobart, also from UVM. She is our Senior Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Vermont. She's going to share a lot of interesting resources that UVM has put together for our students remotely as well. So I'm going to have our panelists turn on your microphone. So let's unmute because we would really love to hear from you. We're going to start with Bruce and Patti. Patti, maybe why don't you start off and share with us some of the information, because one of the questions that when we were planning this webinar is ninth grade too early to start thinking and planning for college? And I know both you and Bruce said, no, it's not. And here's a few tips that you often advise some of our 9th and 10th graders. Patti, do you want to share with us a little bit of the information on this slide, and then Bruce add to that as well?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it here. Bruce and I, as you said earlier, we met and we're putting together the things that we think are important for 9th and 10th graders. And certainly the first one is to continue to do well in your classes. We know that right now this is a new learning environment for many different, and it's very different for students. We encourage students to reach out to their teachers for help if they're feeling like they're not able to catch on to what's going on in this environment. Many teachers are sharing additional resources to augment the, therefore, we're encouraging to take advantage of those. Reviewing course choices with
just 1 second, Patti. Yep. People are just having a little trouble hearing you. I'm wondering if you could just turn that microphone up for just a second, because we know that they want to hear this information as well. Just want to make sure that everyone can hear the information you're sharing with us.
It's on high. It's on as high as it can go.
You got as high as you can go. Okay. Well, then you know what? Just try to project, and we'll do our best to catch all these points. And then maybe Bruce, fill in if there's some areas that you want to complement that topic as well. Keep going, Patti. Thank you.
Sure. Our next step we talked about is reviewing the course choices with your school counselor. At many high schools, the courses were selected in February. What we do know is sometimes toward the end of the school year, students have a tendency to change course selections, and this can be due to many reasons. It could be something that they've read, it could be something that they watched on a video, it could be a teacher recommendation or a college recommendation. But this is a good time to connect with your school counselor and verify your course selection. The next is exploring interests and possible careers. I know it sounds early to think about careers as a 9th grader, but we always say it's never too early to start exploring your interests. There's many, many tools that you can use surveys and identify what those are. My favorite is through the U.S. Department of Labor. It's called My Next Move, based on John Holland's codes as well as his career theory. And it breaks down interest into 6 different categories, which then at that point breaks it down into 16 career clusters. Now, why is that important? Well, because then you look at those different career clusters, look at what training is needed. College might be needed for any other kind of specialized.
Thank you so much. We are still having a little trouble hearing you, so maybe when you're speaking again, if you could maybe pull that microphone right up there, so maybe that'll help. Bruce, do you want to share some of the thoughts as well? I know that you and Patti really put some of these slides together as well.
For sure. And I discarded my headphones because I couldn't hear, so I'm hoping that people can hear me now through my normal mic and everything else. I'd like to thank the University of Vermont and particularly the Office of the Continuing and Distance Education for welcoming me in here tonight. I'm talking from Plymouth, New Hampshire, where it's a fabulously beautiful day coming to a nice sunset. For 9th and 10th graders, Patti's comments were all really spot on here for the first 3 bullets on this slide. I'd also add, it's important for 9th and 10th graders to not feel at this particular moment that they have to necessarily do anything. This is, if the interest is there, then there are certain steps that one can take. Mom and dad can act as encouraging influences, but I wouldn't be the parent who is pulling the horse, the unwilling horse, down to the pond to not drink. But if you're interested, one thing you can clearly do over the course of your 9th and 10th grade years is to do some general sort of passive learning about colleges. You have at your disposal perhaps siblings, certainly classmates who are in classes higher than you are, who are going through this process. So there's one ready resource right there for you, and you might find yourself in a free period with them, or in a cafeteria in a lunch setting where you can ask some questions. It's also wonderful to go on to school websites and check out virtual tours. It would be wonderful if we could all get our feet to campuses, and that's just not possible at this particular moment in time. There are lots of platforms out there for you to use in terms of this beyond just the college website itself. My favorite is one called College Reel, R-E-E-L. That is a resource where students are taking you and introducing you to their schools. You might also want to consider job shadows for your coming school year or potentially over the summer. Some of that is pandemic related insofar as how much freedom, how much of our world is opened back up, but certainly beginning to think about how is there a network within my family, within my friends' families, where I might be able to observe a professional in their workplace to see if, in fact, this might be something of interest for me. Then Patti and I decided on a bullet that said explore options for summer, plan A and plan B. And this really revolves around the flexibility and resilience that we all need to show at these times in terms of the pandemic. I'm sure all the students and parents who are listening here have some plan for their summer. The hope is that your plan A, whether it's working a job, and it doesn't have to be a big, important, valuable job. It could just be scooping ice cream or helping with your local town Department of Public Works or mowing lawns in the neighborhood. Any of those things are valuable. But it's probably wise for us to be thinking along the lines of a plan B in the event that we are still under some restrictions with regard to how much movement we can take. We're going to have a slide in a few minutes that speaks to that specifically. With that, I'll turn it back over to Patti.
I wanted to just pause for a second because I think Patti's microphone is muted at the moment. Sally, I wanted to toss over to you for a moment. You know, the advice coming from Patti and Bruce is that 9th and 10th grade is not too soon to start planning and thinking about that potential path to college. How is that unusual that you see folks maybe reaching out and asking questions as early as their freshman or sophomore year?
Well, good evening. And no, not at all. We see lots of 9th and 10th graders involved in the process. Sometimes they're the younger siblings who are with their older siblings during their college search process, and so that sometimes lights a fire under them maybe a little bit sooner than some students. But yeah, it's never too late or too early to start looking at websites, to start talking with friends, family, alums of the institutions that you may be looking at. I think just relax about it because you have quite a while, but I think thinking about the preparation is really important in terms of academics, and if you have your sights set on a science, mathematical field, really working with your counselor on the course selection that you'll need to get up to by the time you're a senior. But don't stress about it, but just kind of, it's a big world out there, and just take a look and see what's out there.
Great. I appreciate that perspective. Patti, I'm hoping that we can hear you. I'm going to unmute you here, and I'm hoping we can hear you a little bit better this time because I know how much great information that you have to share with everybody. So let's move over to the year that I think most people think the most about college prep, and you think in your junior year when you're starting to do tours and you're really thinking about what testing and what campuses might be of interest to you. Let's talk about that. What exactly during this time, when school campuses are not open to tours and in-person visits, what can juniors and their families be doing at this time? And I'll toss that maybe over to Patti, and hopefully we can hear you well this time.
Okay. I'm going to start with one of the things that we want to have juniors considering is practicing for the ACT, SAT, and SAT subject tests. There's lots of free resources out there right now for students to use. There's the Khan Academy, ACT Academy, College Board. There's also Kaplan, Princeton Review, College Vine, Prep Scholar is another. Again, it's not to stress students out about thinking about these standardized tests. It's just to get them to start thinking about preparing and becoming familiar with the layout of those tests. So when you do actually take them, you have some comfort level. We want students to consider flexible pathway alternatives. As we know, the state of Vermont has passed a flexible pathways bill. And what that includes are opportunities such as a dual enrollment class where a student can take a college course while also still attending high school. That's why it's called dual enrollment. And in Vermont, our students are really lucky that they get 2 free college courses to take before they graduate. We also want students to think of flexible pathways in terms of building a personalized learning plan that is individualized for the student. That could consider or could contain dual enrollment class. It could job shadow, an internship, an independent study, some of those unique experiences that will make a difference in a student's 4 years in high school. We know that many high schools are offering their own college workshops, and we're going to get into a couple sampling of those. Many high schools, such as that I'm at Stowe High School, we're offering those virtually, building a college list, writing a college essay, so we're starting the college.
Great. Thank you so much. Bruce, I'd love to hear from you too on this as well. And I know that we're getting a lot of questions, which is very natural, that a lot of folks are saying, what about the ACTs? What about the SATs? What is happening with some of these tests and these exams since the schools are closed? What advice are you giving to your juniors related to those tests? Do you want to take that, Bruce?
Well, the good news is for the class of 2021 that many colleges, and I'm sure Sally will speak to this specifically as it relates to UVM, but many colleges have extended test optional plan for the rising senior class. That is to say, at most colleges and universities in the United States, testing will be considered optional. So that's a big advantage in some regards, and I can tell you that there were some people from the class of 2019, 2020, 2018 who wished they were given that particular policy. That said, it will, as a result of the test optional policies being implemented by most colleges, it will cast, I think, a brighter spotlight on transcripts, on the context of and content of one's essay. I think those things are really going to matter a great deal as students from the class of 2021 move to the actual application process and submit their applications. So it is a ever fluid situation. My understanding at this, virtually day to day, these things change, but my understanding is that ACT is still holding to its June test date. They also have a postponed test date in June should the 14th not hold. The SAT has said things are canceled down until August, and then their hope is to have August, September, October, November, December testing. So, of course, the hope moving forward is that these will still be made available for students. That said, most schools have moved to a test optional position.
Thank you for that perspective. And I know that both Bruce and Sally and Patti will make reference to different resources for parents. We have slides at the end that have captured all of the references and resources that everybody is talking about tonight. So if you didn't catch something, please don't worry. We'll go over those at the end, and we will share those with a recording follow-up email after this presentation, so you won't miss anything. Thank you for that perspective, Bruce and Patti. Sally, what are you seeing in terms of, I imagine these questions are coming in fast and furious in your world in the admissions office at UVM related to those standardized testing. Is that true?
Absolutely. We get these questions every day, all day, and we are working really carefully with students. We, at this time, are planning to require either the SAT or the ACT for first-year students, and UVM has always taken the approach that we look at applications holistically, and so we put into play many factors in the admissions process. So standardized test scores are one of many factors. They're certainly never the sole consideration of an application, and we really tend to put a lot more emphasis on that day-to-day performance, the rigor of the academic schedule, looking for students who have gone beyond our minimum entrance requirements. They're listed on our application, so many years of English, preparation in math, science, social sciences, foreign language. So we kind of look at standardized test scores in conjunction with the high school record and in association with it. So we tend to really put a lot of emphasis on strong performance, upward trends, really putting on a lot of heft in the schedule, especially the senior year. And as Patti mentioned, there's so many ways to take courses through dual enrollment, through the vouchers, through summer programs. So we definitely take all those things into account. And we also have an essay. We have actually a couple prompts that students can choose from, and that's another way to kind of elevate your application and tell us more about you. There's also other options for the essay as well. We're a part of Common App or the Coalition. So either application is viewed in the same way. The format looks a little bit different, but other than that, we definitely take into account the whole picture, not just test scores, not just grades, but that whole package that you can present to us through an application.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know that all of our presenters, at the end, I've mentioned that we have a lot of resources. There are some tips that they offer as well to think about this summer, even as a senior as well, some things that you can do to take look for opportunities in this hard time and challenging time, and find new opportunities to grow your application and your competitiveness for the schools you might be interested in. Bruce, I'll toss back over to you and Patti as well, because I know that you're doing a lot of support for your students at both Stowe High School and Holderness to help students work on their resumes and build those college lists. What are some of the virtual workshops that you guys are doing and that you're seeing out there with your colleagues as well?
Virtually, through their college's own platform, we recommend a variety of other opportunities for students to participate that way. We tend to also here at Holderness sponsor our own workshops on filling out the application, writing the essay, constructing a college list. But I can say that one resource that I have found particularly valuable with regard to particularly building a college list is Coursava. That I think it's an excellent site, and they help quite a bit. And within the context of writing an effective college essay, there's a fellow out in Southern California named Ethan Sawyer who goes by the happy nomenclature of the college essay guy. And he, if you jump on his website, he has made much of his material, or some of his material, free because of the pandemic and his desire to be equitable and inclusive in these unprecedented times. So the College Essay Guy website has a ton of good resources and workshops and individual activities that students can participate in that really make a difference, I think, in terms of putting together a good application and constructing an appropriate list.
And Patti, I know you're working closely with your students on this kind of thing as well. Share with us some of the workshops you've been creating.
We usually do our workshops, as you know, in face-to-face, but certainly in the time that we're in right now, we've been running what we call virtual workshops, Google Hangouts, and we present that way. The slide that you see right now is one of our big workshops called Building a College List. That's where we go over lots of different college search criteria, some of the things that Bruce had said as well. We really feel strongly that it's really important for students to identify the strengths and the values that they have, the core values that they have. So when they pick a college, not only is it about getting in, it's also about fitting in. And so we spend a lot of time focusing in that area, then moving to those other college resource tools. Many high schools have Naviance, so there's some great search tools built right into Naviance. There are other tools such as College Express, Niche, College Navigator. Those are other ones that students use as well. But we are offering those, like I said, virtually, and we're running several a week. And we also run, like Bruce was saying, the college essay. And we use the college essay guys, his materials as well. They're fabulous. Bruce said they're free. Our students really like them. There's a great sense of humor, so writing the essay doesn't become as painful as you might think it is. What I really like about his tools is it gets students a chance to start brainstorming about what they could write rather than, what someone else is telling them to write. It's just a great tool.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that information as well. Let's move over to our seniors. Because there's still a lot that seniors can be doing, even though your traditional campus visits aren't available in a traditional sense in this way. I think many of our colleges, including UVM, of course, have been incredibly creative as to having virtual admitted student days and all kinds of different things. Sally, let's toss back over to you. I'd love to hear, and I know we'll go over in a little bit more of a slide, but how much has changed, in the last couple of months to welcome students as they're considering and being accepted into UVM? What are some of the unique things that the University of Vermont has done to connect with seniors?
Yeah, we have been moving really quickly, and we have just passed the May 1st deadline, which is the common reply date. So are excited about our incoming class, and in the middle of March things changed pretty dramatically as we transformed what used to be largely an on-campus program for admitted students. We made them into virtual events and harnessed our whole campus community and really set up sort of a webinar much like this that had a lot of live speakers, some curated content. We had the camera, we were zooming all over from one place to another to meet our students, so they were able to really share their experiences. Our faculty, we did 6 of them virtually, and we only did 2 on campus in February. So those were things that radically changed, I think, the way that we delivered the information for admitted families. We also offered opportunities for folks to chat and meet with faculty, and those were available many of the evenings by our colleges and schools. We also had opportunities just to talk with students, to hear from residential life, to hear from the academic side of the house. We had individual chats for folks with financial aid officers to understand their financial aid package. So colleges were really moving quickly to develop these virtual programs. And you'll find if you checked a little while ago for virtual options, May and June, there may not have been that many out there, but look again at the colleges you're looking for. We are quickly adding more opportunities all the time. we were really fortunate to be able to have a lot of great content, a lot of videos. There's a lot of, probably over 100 curated videos on our different websites and our YouTube channel for admitted students. And we had counselors available. You know, the admissions office is divided up by territory. So if you live in Wyoming, you know who your counselor is. If you live in Maine, I'm the counselor for the state of Maine. We have the state of Vermont, obviously, first, you know, and forefront, and we have many counselors who connect with Vermont families. So you can look at the colleges you're looking for and see who is their territory manager or their admissions counselor, and they'll have their email address, their phone. You know, we are all set up with, you know, emails and being able to take phone calls right through our laptop. So really, it's been, I think I wrote this down, I start each day saying, you know, Captain's Log, week 7, day 49. And we're getting really good at this. We're getting better all the time. So keep checking in the websites about the offerings that your schools are offering, because they are numerous. We hope to have on-campus visits later in the summer, but we're kind of going month to month at this point with what types of programs we're putting out there for students and families to register for.
Thank you, Sally. I do want to get to a couple different questions that we have here and recognize also that we have many of our viewers and participants tonight on our YouTube channel as well, live streaming with us. And I know, Sally, you've touched on this, but I wanted to just come back to it because I think it's a popular question that folks are really wanting to know if UVM particularly will be moving to optional testing with the SATs and the ACTs. And I know you've touched on it, but I just want to maybe come back around to that. What is UVM's perspective on if those testing will be optional now as people consider applying?
Well, at this point, there's really no decision on that. Our plan is that we'll continue to require first-year students to have either submitted either the SAT or the ACT. You know, as things change, we may reevaluate that, but at this point, that's our position. You know, we do have a November 1 deadline called early action, which is non-binding, and then we have a January 15th deadline for regular admission, and we release our decisions either in December or in mid to late February. So depending on the course of, you know, what happens in terms of test dates and what's available, we will be flexible. We reconsider merit scholarships based on new information, whether it's new grades, test scores, additional essays. So all those things we do respond to, but at this point that is our position. You know, whether or not we will change that remains to be seen. It's, like I said earlier, it's one of many factors in the admissions process. And really, there are certain things that you can control and there's certain things you can't, but your day-to-day performance in your classes is something that's very much within your grasp. So that's something that we'll pay a lot of attention to.
And that's a great transition. Bruce, I want to bring you back up to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing in this slide. And I think Sally just hit on it. Continue to do well in your courses. And you said to me, Bruce, when we were talking about planning this, is don't take the foot off the pedal yet. Keep going. And I know this is incredibly challenging. We've all have different circumstances that we're dealing with in terms of our home and our schooling and family situations. But continuing to focus on your studies is really what you're advising your students, even as they're nearing the end of their senior year. Is that true?
And it's a second helping of challenge over the day-to-day, our day-to-day normal lives. That is to say, there's nothing easy about this for anyone involved on either side of the desk, whether it's at the secondary level, the high school level, or at the higher ed university level. We are all facing a need to be kind and patient, both with ourselves and with others. But I think probably the soundest advice to give is to make certain that you, as the individual in the circumstance here, the student in particular, controls what she or he can control. And so they must go into class, they must participate fully, they must be as engaged as they possibly can if they in fact want to do best for themselves as they prepare to apply to college. There's no question about it. That does not diminish the challenge of it, but simply put, you can, in fact, control whether you're there, whether you're participating, whether you're doing all those things you need to do. And so our best guidance for you all as students is to maybe do more than what you thought you could do under these circumstances, because we're all facing the challenge. And I think rising in challenge is something that all colleges and universities are interested in. And just a quick word to something that Sally said a few minutes ago. I think the University of Vermont does an outstanding job with regard to holistic review. That is to say, looking at the totality of the student's profile, whether it be courses taken, grades achieved, extracurricular activities. All those things are going to come into play as you apply to colleges. And the University of Vermont has distinguished itself as being a place that understands the full roundedness of a student and their profile. So keep working. It's hard. It's hard for your teachers. It's hard all the way around, but we're all trying to pull our oars in the same direction so our boat continues to move forward.
Thank you, Bruce. I really appreciate that. I'm going to move on a little bit here, and we'll come back to, I know we have a whole bunch of questions coming in, and we're trying to keep an eye on those and touching on the ones and the themes that we see. It is very possible that we may not be able to get to all the questions this evening. And I'll ask one of our support staff here, Kelly, to put up our email address. So if you do have a follow-up question that we were not able to get to, please send us an email. We'll see if we can get in touch with Sally and Patti and Bruce to see if we can share that information, and or we'll find the resources here at the University of Vermont to answer your questions as well. And thank you, Sally and Bruce and Patti, for answering questions in the chat box. You guys have been busy this evening as well, so thank you. So let's talk about, as Bruce was saying, let's not take that foot off the gas yet, and look for those opportunities to continue to create a well-rounded application, and looking for opportunities that maybe wouldn't have been there if there wasn't the school closures. And so, you know, I love some of the points that I believe that you and Patti put together is, you know, start a garden, share some produce, you know, really trying to see what's happening around you and how you can make a difference and how you can get involved and learn something new as well. Patti, I'm hoping that we can hear you a little bit better, and maybe even pulling that microphone on your headset up real close to you, because I know you have such valuable information to share. I'm going to unmute so it's just a little bit easier. Why don't you share with us, Patti, some of the things that you're advising and or that you're even seeing some of your students, what they're coming up with and being creative during this closure?
Well, some of the things you see right on that slide, I do have a couple of students that are learning a new world language that we don't offer at Stowe, so I think that's pretty exciting. I have another student that's learning American Sign Language, even just learning CPR. I've talked to a couple of students that are interested in healthcare careers, so they've signed up to do some of that virtually. I think there's another, or I should say there's two other students that are looking at creating a blog, so they're learning how to do Photoshop and learning how do you use WordPress. So it's really an opportunity, as when Bruce and I were talking about this slide, we were saying it's an opportunity, even in this hardship, to start thinking sort of outside of the box and looking at some other things that you can do. I mean, we live in Vermont; it's beautiful, right? We get a chance to take some hikes, you know, explore some mountains that we haven't done before, send some trails. We also said it's a good opportunity to even think about gap year possibilities. There's lots of great resources out there as well. So we're hoping that some of those items that we have on the slides there will give students, start to get them thinking a little differently about how to spend that summer.
Bruce, do you have anything to add to that? I bet you're seeing some creativity with some of your students as well.
Well, one of the interesting things about the pandemic and the quarantining and all of this is that some people, and certainly once a school year comes to an end, are finding themselves with an abundance of free time that they normally didn't have. And so it is a wonderful opportunity, although it can be a challenge to move from hardship to opportunity in the way we're looking at things. But I've had students say to me, I've always wanted to take a course in fill in the blank, and I have an opportunity to do that now, whereas if we were at school, I'd have the other responsibilities and obligations in our case here at Holderness, required afternoon activities, athletic teams, and those kinds of things. There are lots of platforms out there. Citizen Science is a wonderful platform where the researchers in the United States are crowdsourcing research and information. Zoom Universe is another. There are wonderful and interesting classes you can take too. They don't necessarily have to be neuroscience A4. You can take a class to be a stand-up comedian. There are a whole wide range of things you can do. So I think the bigger point here, and this speaks to Patti and our conversation earlier with regard to having a plan B in the event that your summer plan A does not work or fit properly. To be brainstorming ideas and thoughts, your parents, your friends, your extended family members, your teachers back at school, gathering ideas. Sometimes students just like to have what some of my students call passion projects. They're really interested in a particular movie genre, for instance, and they just want to dive in as deep as they can and see all the movies in that particular genre. Those are really neat and very translatable, it seems to me, in terms of a college application, whether it's in an interview or certainly in the context of an essay.
Such great tips. Thank you so much, Sally. I know you're so busy in that chat box for us, but I'm hoping that you can share with us some information. You've talked a little bit earlier today about the virtual admitted students days, and here's a little bit more information on this slide. Some of the things that prospective students and their families can find resources here at the University of Vermont. Can you just walk us through some of the information that folks are seeing here?
You can hear me, but we have offered this whole array of visit programs for admitted students, and now we're kind of turning to juniors in high school and younger grades, as well as transfer students, to attend what we call a virtual information session, which is a presentation by one of our counselors. There's videos incorporated in that. There's the opportunity to hear a student panel that's been pre-recorded, but we also have a student who is live on the presentation with us, and you can ask the student questions about, how'd they find their major? Can they double major? How's the food? Tell me about the residential learning communities. Anything that's really on their mind. So that's a wonderful opportunity to hear from a current student and one of our admissions counselors. We also have a very active chat, much like we're doing right now, where you can pose your question, and you can also take it offline if you have more, individual questions that you want to talk with someone over the phone or through email. We can do that as well. And again, there's a lot of really good content. This is something that, we didn't do in a really large-scale way. I mean, obviously the website's been really important and some videos, but to have over 100 now videos that are on our website, and colleges all over the country and the world are really putting together as much virtual content as possible. And it's a way that we've been able to reach many, many students that we didn't reach before because of distance or time, schedules, what have you. So I think moving forward, once we get through this pandemic, the virtual platform will be something that we will definitely incorporate. Nothing beats an on-campus visit, that's for sure. That's kind of the heart of an institution that you feel, but there is a way that you can pick up on a vibe and an energy when you're looking at schools through this type of platform.
That's a really good point. Thank you for sharing that some of these pieces, some of the things that hopefully are working well, will continue to move forward. Sally, we have a lot of questions also over on the YouTube channel, and I just wanted to pause for a second because I find this question incredibly valuable. I know that we have mental health services here on campus for our students at UVM. Do you want to just share what are some of the things that are available as parents are thinking, and students, but families are thinking about that there may need to be some extra services or some extra considerations as students and families transition back into any kind of on-campus environment. But what are some of the services that are available to our students to support them?
Sure. This is an area where I think UVM really shines. There's been a tremendous amount of energy, resources put toward really supporting and helping our students and their mental health. We've got a vast array of residential learning communities. One is completely based on neuroscience. It's called the Wellness Environment. You can read about that and hear about that on our website. We have I think it's 9 different learning environments. So whether it be the wellness environment or sustainability or the honors college, arts and creativity, all of our incoming students this past year lived in a residential learning community, and that has been a really valuable experience. There's all kinds of support services, mental health counseling, opportunities to learn yoga, to learn mindfulness, to enjoy recreational sports, which is a really important part of, I think, health and well-being. Really fabulous food, great advising. We put many of the resources right in the data center. So we have really, it's like University of Vermont's living room for students. So students hang out there, they access resources, they get to see pets. We have a wonderful therapy dog that hangs out there. They have massages. They have, always a lot going on and really good programming around, good mental health and nutrition. So there's a lot that you can learn on the UVM website about mental health services.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can imagine as all of us start thinking about the transition back to campuses and restaurants and various different social activities, just going cautiously. And so it's nice to hear that UVM is well equipped to support our students in a variety of ways. I wanted to just circle back in terms of, we've talked about some prep that 9th and 10th graders can do. We focused a lot on juniors and then our seniors in high school as to how they start transitioning into college and looking forward, hopefully, to the fall. Patti, let's go back to you as well, because I think this is a great thing to be considering. What else can a freshman and a sophomore and a junior be doing? And what collectively can folks be thinking about as they start looking towards the summer and the fall? What are some of the tips that you're sharing with some of your folks as well? And that really made a difference when you pulled that microphone right up close. That worked wonderful. If you want to try that again for us, Patti.
All right. One of the things we have our 9th and 10th graders doing that's been very helpful, especially when our 12th graders start officially applying to college, is they really like the fact that we had them start working on a resume in 9th grade. When I say working on a resume, it is a way to capture what's been going on in 9th grade, such as, did you have any awards? Did you have any, what kind of co-curriculars were you involved in? Were you involved in certain clubs? All that sort of little things that may not seem important, but it's great to keep track of, and a resume helps you do that. So that when you get to 12th grade and you've got this blank college application screen in front of you and you need to add these activities, you're going to already have a great selection to choose from because you've been keeping track. We talk about the virtual college fairs. There's many of those that are online that we suggest our students participate in. Certainly, when we are back, being able to do things face to face, doing those college fairs that often are supported by the NEAC Act that happens in the fall over at UVM or St. Lawrence. It's great to participate in. We do have students reviewing the college websites, and that comes from some of the activities that we do. When I was mentioning earlier about building the college list, looking at your strengths, looking at your values, and then taking that information and using that to review some colleges that might be able to get you.
Oh, unfortunately, we're having a little trouble hearing that last part. Bruce, do you want to I'd love to, I know the two of you worked on this together. Do you want to just share what you're recommending to your students when thinking about all the different grades that you're advising folks to be thinking about as they're looking forward?
Sure. I think one thing to really recommend for 9, 10, and 11 is to make sure that those students, as they think about their subsequent year, and some schools are doing this right now, some will do it as the year draws to a close, but pick their courses for next year wisely. That is to say, colleges and universities are typically interested in what I refer to as the core curriculum: English, math, foreign language, science, and history. Of course, there's more to the curriculum than that. Those aren't the only places where a college or university will pay attention. If you're interested in the arts, whether the visual arts or the performing arts or music, those are important courses for sure. But making sure you're continuing to climb the curriculum ladder, no matter the high school setting you're in. Make no mistake that colleges and universities are interested in seeing students who are pursuing the most rigorous classes they can, within reason, of course. We don't want students to go into those classes and find themselves really sinking as opposed to thriving, but pursuing the strongest curriculum they can, and then, of course, performing in it. So that's a really big piece that I know Patti and I spent some time talking about, and that sometimes students and parents overlook, is just how important 10th, 11th, and 12th grade course selection can be. And this is often the time where folks are making those decisions for subsequent years.
And Bruce, I know that all of our panelists contributed to the next slides that include resources for our families and students. Will you just share again, because I know you've mentioned a couple of these several times throughout the presentation. Bruce, just touch on some of the ones that you're seeing here, and I'll kind of zip through the slides and maybe just highlight a few of the ones that you've mentioned today.
Sure. Coursava is just a really good site, along with College Navigator, College Express, for list building, finding your footing amidst the 2,400 four-year colleges and universities that are out there in the United States alone. If we add community colleges, we go up to 4,000. So those are really helpful. I mentioned the college essay guy. I think Patti put out a college admissions timeline. I'm seeing that link there, something for 9th all the way through 12th grade. I mentioned the college essay guy, whose real name is Ethan Sawyer. The Truth About College Admission is a new book just out, written by a couple of folks, one on the college side, Rick Clark, who's director of admission at Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech, and my colleague down at the Derryfield School, Brendan Bernard. That's a wonderful book, and it's just out, so you could order that. Career Exploration, My Next Move, fabulous, wonderful. UVM Extension 4-H program, there are some wonderful things available for folks there. And I think you bumped onto the next. These are all places that are a little bit more of the mainstream sort of college and university sites where you can go to get information. ACT, College Board for SAT updates and AP checklists, those kinds of things, updates on the COVID-19 circumstance and situation. College admission testing webinars, fabulous resource. So I would, as much as I like all the things that are being said, this might be some of the slides in the presentation that folks find themselves going back to and checking out. And there's such a variety here, from building a list to making your way through the process of filling out an application. I think it'll hit a lot of needs. At least that was our hope, Patti and mine, when we put all these together.
I also wanted to, Sally, I just unmuted you here for a sec. I know you're busy in the chat box, but wondering if, Bruce had mentioned earlier the campus reel, and I had checked it out, and it was just wonderful to see the different videos from the student's perspective. And you mentioned a little bit earlier how many more videos that UVM is creating to try to bring that experience to the forefront for students. Do you want to just maybe share some of the things that are on here that you find that are useful for students as well?
Sure, in terms of the video format?
Sure.
Yeah, at the end of the presentation, there's a link to recordings of our virtual admitted student visit days. There's also some links to all these various videos that I mentioned. We have some incredible videographers at UVM in our communications and marketing area. And we also really turn to our students who are really busy, and our tour guides and our film and television majors to help us put together a lot of video content very, very quickly. So the scene that you'll see on the virtual information session, thanks to one of our tour guides, actually created all of that filming for us, and the campus tour which is really quite exceptional. And you can just go on to the website, look at the visit options, sign up for one of them. We offer one almost every day of the week. They're really popular, especially the ones in the afternoon at around 3:30. And you can follow around a tour guide and hear from 3 students who show you all over campus. And that's really one of my favorite videos.
Sounds great. There's just been so many unique resources. And again, you mentioned a lot of these things will continue. And so we'll take some of these best practices and carry them forward. I did want to touch upon a few other resources here at the University of Vermont that Patti and Bruce and Sally have mentioned as well in terms of building that candidacy for your admissions to college. And we have, I have a few more slides that'll go in depth about Summer Academy here at University of Vermont. Traditionally, partially on campus and partially online. This summer it will be fully online, 4 weeks of 100% online for our Summer Academy. And that's traditionally for students who have completed 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and I'll touch on that in a second. And pre-college courses. There are high school students who are taking college credit courses all the time here at the University of Vermont. I believe Patti has mentioned as well the Vermont dual enrollment. I'll touch on that in a moment, that allows students to take a course here at the University of Vermont at no charge. There's a small fee, but really you're able to take college level and credit courses at an incredibly small fee and gain that not only the college experience, but credits coming into college, which is an amazing experience. We also have our guaranteed admission program, which we call GAP here. And there's a new iteration of our guaranteed admission program here at the University of Vermont. It's a Catamount Enrichment Learning Community, which will be offered online as well, and there'll hopefully in the fall be some on-campus options as well, so you can kind of pick and choose as to how you're going to make that an experience for you, and we'll talk about that. So the dual enrollment, and I know this is something that many Vermont families take advantage of, and it's really an opportunity for Vermont high school students to take up to 2 college courses with tuition fully reimbursed. As I said, there's a small service fee as well. The vouchers cover the cost of tuition up to 4 credits. It's on a semester by semester basis, and it is important to note at the bottom there that students must get approval for a dual enrollment course from their high school guidance counselors in order to receive that credit. But applications are open for the dual enrollment, and so it's something that we highly recommend, and we see many high school students in Vermont taking advantage of that. So this Summer Academy, our online enrichment learning community that will kick off in a couple months, traditionally a little bit half and half on campus and online, but this year it will be fully online for our folks who are completing 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, and it's really an opportunity, amazing opportunity to not only build this network of peers and students and friends from all across the country, but it also gives you really a feeling and a taste of what college life is like, and earns credit. So you also have an experience throughout the summer to build that candidacy and to build your credit and to build that application, as Bruce and Patti were talking about, is looking for those opportunities over the summer. Maybe maybe folks have a little bit more time because they won't be doing sports or various different things that normally would be happening. And so also the online enrichment community for our Summer Academy is designed to prepare high school students for college and beyond. And really one of the things that's exciting about this opportunity for high school students is really experiencing online teaching and online courses and learning and building those study skills in an online platform as well, and taught by UVM faculty. These courses are incredibly rigorous and wonderful for students. And I speak with a lot of students, high school students, that come out of the courses and they just can't say enough positive things about the experience. Here's the 4 courses that are being offered for Summer Academy online this summer. Lots of information about this on our website as well. And as I mentioned, the Guaranteed Admission program, which we call GAP here at UVM, has a new Catamount Enrichment Learning Community. And this is a kind of a reimagining guaranteed admission program here at the University of Vermont. And there'll be some flexibility, full or part-time scheduling, fully online course options. And really the intention is to build those study skills to help folks who maybe need to show a little bit more academic readiness before they matriculate into the University of Vermont, really developing meaningful relationships with other students in the enrichment learning community here in the Guaranteed Admission program, and have access to all of the resources that the university offers. Sally had mentioned many of the resources here not only on the academic side, but also on the wellness side. And all of our guaranteed admission program students have access to that. And the guaranteed admission program provides students an opportunity to demonstrate that academic readiness. Maybe, the GPA wasn't quite where it was, or this remote learning was a little bit more challenging. And so maybe there's an opportunity to consider the guaranteed admission program a different way into the University of Vermont while you're earning credit as well, and ultimately enrolling in the undergrad program here at the University of Vermont. I also wanted to share, because this is a University of Vermont webinar tonight, and so of course there's going to be a learning opportunity for everybody participating. We have a digital badge that we're offering our folks who are participating with us today, and it's a participation badge and for this webinar series, and we have been launching new digital badges, and folks love to show the learning that they have done through this experience as well. And so this is our webinar series of Preparing for College When High School is Closed participation badge that is available to folks who have participated in this discussion tonight. We're happy to do that. And Kelly will put up the link to claim the badge. This is a live link on your screen as well, where it says click here to claim the badge. I will put this slide back up at the very end and leave that up for folks who are interested in doing that. And if you have questions about that, you can certainly email us as well. So hopefully we have just a couple more minutes for a few more questions. We have so many questions that have come in. One of the things that I wanted to add back to Sally, I'm going to turn your microphone back on, Sally, so you can, it's so hard to see that crystal ball, but fall, lots of folks are wondering, what will fall look like here at the University of Vermont? And I know that's an incredibly hard question to answer, but at the moment, campus will be open and students will be back on campus as well. How are you answering that question, as I'm sure many parents and students are wondering what that will look like?
It's definitely a question that I think many are asking, as we're all wondering what it will look like. And at this point, we are really looking forward to having everybody back on campus. Our president has delivered a very strong message, which you can view on the website. So Suresh Garamilla has his vision of what the fall will look like. He has charged a committee to really look at a wide array of options for students, and has recognized that it will be very different when we come back in terms of measures that will be put into place to ensure students are safe, and that we're keeping, some distance, or a whole array of things that they are looking at to ensure that it's a safe community, that we are just so excited to have folks back on campus. And you can view that website, and over the next probably month or so, that committee will be delivering their recommendations for sort of adoption, and then we will be putting that out, what the university will look like. So a lot of hard work is going on college campuses all over the country, and secondary schools as well, as we just look at, especially those that have boarding students, how we do that safely and carefully. And we have a lot more time to plan. This was sort of thrown at us very quickly, and having a bigger runway, I think, is going to help us all.
Really good point. Thank you so much for that. I know that every parent and student is wondering what that will look like, and it's hard to know, but that's encouraging to hear. I just really want to thank our panelists so much. Patti, thank you so much, and Bruce and Sally, for your time and your perspective, and thank you to the crew that helps me, Eric and Foster and Kelly, and Allison was also in our chat box as well, answering questions. Thank you for everyone, your wonderful questions and your perspective tonight, and we wish you, please stay well and stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing everyone in the fall. Thank you. Have a great night.